they want to be growing more. Generally, by default, people think they have a marketing problem, but that's not necessarily true. Like, you could have a marketing problem, but like it's actually because you have a data problem. You aren't tracking things correctly. You have a CRM problem because like the sales team isn't like working. You have a marketing and a sales integration problem. You have a campaign optimization problem. You don't know how to invest money, and you don't know how to set KPI problems. And so when like take away like the layer of like, what does it mean that like we're not growing? It like manifests in like a bunch of different forms.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the How to Scale a Business podcast. My name is Hector Santiesteban and I am your host for today. Our special guest is Mr. Justin Rashidi, and he is the co-founder of SeedX. And we're going to talk all things growth and scaling. And welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I was looking at, doing some research and seeing some of the clients that you've worked with and some of the things that you've done. It's really interesting because it's like, at first, it's really impressive because it's like, whoa, some of these are the biggest companies and institutions in the world. And then you look at like what you do, and I'm like, I don't know what they do though. So they probably do like that. Usually means that like they end up doing everything. Like it's like it looks like they have their hands in a little bit of everything, and also stuff that's probably way beyond my pay grade. So I'm excited to dig in and learn. Catch us up on maybe some of the important stops for you personally along the way, and then more specifically what you guys do at.
Yeah, so what we do at SeedX. Yeah, I mean, I think people pigeonhole us more so. Like the easiest one is we're a marketing company or a marketing agency. That's like the easiest way to understand it. Like the more accurate way of understanding what we do is like we're really like business consultants, and we specialize in marketing, sales, and then technology. And they generally like go together in some capacity. Like there's a straight line between like almost everything that we do. And so though companies have problems, like, I mean, like at the end of the day, like companies have tons of problems. Every scale of company, they are facing different issues, right? They lack resources, they lack talent, they lack these different things. And so we are a partner that can help like support your team, either through like fully doing something, consulting, etc., to help you like basically solve problems. And so, yeah, hopefully that like gives a general idea of what we do. I don't know if that helps or not.
Now the listeners are like, all right, I understand why Hector thought exactly that, because it seems like I would imagine that most businesses, they have certain types of problems, or there are a lot of similarities, but and also there is a uniqueness to each problem, in the sense that you have a business and an industry in a certain stage, and so you guys are really able to bring your resources to that specific problem and help solve it, which I'm sure takes a lot of different forms.
Yeah, let me tell you the problem everyone has, and then let me tell you like what it actually means. So the problem that like people come to us is they're like they want to be growing more, right? And so like generally by default, people think they have a marketing problem. But that's not necessarily true, right? Like you could have a marketing problem, but like it's actually because you have a data problem. You aren't tracking things correctly. You have a CRM problem because like the sales team isn't like working. You have a marketing and a sales integration problem. You have a campaign optimization problem. You have like you don't know how to invest money, and you don't know how to set KPI problems, right? And so when like you like take away like the layer of like what does it mean that like we're not growing, it like manifests in like a bunch of different forms. Right. And so then what we can kind of come in and help them, like not on the operation side so much, but like if you're facing problems in these general areas, like we have a pretty good idea of like, okay, like you have this problem, you have this problem, you have this problem, you have this problem. Like if you cannot answer these questions, like you face those problems, and we can help you solve those problems. Because once you're like in the situation where you're like, well, I don't know why I'm not growing. Like, is it, and then you start asking questions. Is it because like I'm not doing enough SEO? Is it because our ads aren't doing this? Is it because like whatever, right? There's all these different problems that can exist in that space. And so like having people who've like gone through those problems a bunch of times can like help be like, these are like the 4 things that you need to focus on to like unlock like actual growth.
Does it end up being like, when you look at how you solve stuff, is it that you guys are walking people through a general framework, some consultant agents, some consultants, if you will, and not to pigeonhole you in that, but they've got, hey, first you do, step 1, and then you do step 2, and then you do step 3, or, other sort of consultants, or that form of providers has more of a tool belt where they kind of go, okay, this is sort of the right tool to deploy for this particular business because they have this issue in this particular iteration. Are you guys more of a like a recipe, or do you guys have more of like a tool belt sort of?
Yeah, it's closer to tool belt than like recipe. Like recipes break as soon as like there's some edge case, and every business has an edge case, right? So unless like it's like even in like if you're just serving restaurants, even like there's edge cases on restaurants or like some standard template that could be given for a large industry, right? For the companies that like we're working with, like yeah, they all have like face different problems because like they have different personnel, they have different cost of goods, like they did have different margins, they have different delivery costs, like in different sales processes, right? One sales process doesn't speak to the next sales process, right? One acquisition system doesn't speak to the other, and so like yeah, we're usually coming in and like providing tools. And if we don't have the tool, then we like bring in people to help us and stuff.
Are there ones that you find going back to frequently or more often now than before? Yeah, or methodologies or solutions, prescriptions that you go, okay, here's a problem, here's what we're going to deploy. They need us to set up this sort of system, or they need us to run this sort of campaign, or they need to do, are there sort of things that you find are coming up more than others?
The biggest one is that people just don't understand their business metrics like enough, and like what levers like tie into those business metrics. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so generally, like we start by like understanding like what is your core business, like what is your product, what is your margin, how long does it take to sell, like is it direct to consumer and you're going to sell it right away, right? Is it retail and like there's some like offline purchase behavior, right? Or is it like true B2B where like we're running through different types of sales processes? And like actually like having that type of understanding, like you start to think of everything as like an investment more so. And so like once we have a core understanding of like the business, right, and like how it actually functions, and this is why I think like marketing kind of like falls apart, is because like you have a lot of people enter marketing because they're thinking marketing is like creative and like all these other things, and it is those things, but like actually like at a really core level, it starts to get really close to like investment, right, which is like the application of dollars in a business, right? And so like if you don't know how the business function, like you can't actually apply like leverage to the levers that are going to function correctly.
Yeah, because it's about at the end of the day, it's about finding what works, doing more of that, doing less of what doesn't. And I know from my own experience and my own sort of just bullshit in my head of like me wanting to just do things, and then in my like bringing that investment brain going, but that's not paying off. Like, why there's no ROI. Like you just want to do it because it looks cool, or it's vanity, or pick all whatever it is.
It feels safe is a big one.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because they've done it before, or it's familiar or whatever. And so yeah, I think that being able to understand what's working and then do more of that essentially actually requires a lot of data.
Yeah, and then like you also have to have a lot of confidence that like you're making the right decision too, right? Because it's like if you're telling someone to like stop an activity, you better be certain that like that activity is not working, right? And so and that's where like a lot of like the fear comes in of like, oh, like we could tell someone like you could literally save $1 million by not doing this thing, and like it takes a lot of like massaging of feelings. When people ask like also what we do, I was like, honestly, I do a lot of therapy. Like I'm sitting talking to people about like how they feel about stuff, or our team is, right? Because it's like, well, I'm scared if we turn this off, we're actually going to have lower performance. Like, how do we mitigate like moving people through different phases, and like developing the skills and these different things that they need in order to like grow?
Yeah, you mentioned, one of the things that this is a selfish question that I've had a challenge with, but I would imagine that other marketing, creative, or even just business leaders that reach a certain level of scale is getting these things, like getting the team to do these things, or working through the team, especially in sort of a creative field and industry. How much are systems and processes part of what you guys do, or where do those come into play with regards to working with your clients?
It's a good question. System and processes should be like execution should be a system and a process. Strategy should be ideally almost always bespoke, right? Like, and so you're trying to move from like a strategy to a process. And I think working through your team, I mean, it's a lot of questions. Like your team should be able to function in a process because process drives like more efficiency. The process needs to be flexible. like for at least for our case, right? Like I think it's very different depending on the business because of like the way that we work. Our processes need to be more flexible. Like in general, you want your like if you have a company where you can run a process 100% end to end and it always outputs the right thing, like you want to run a tight process. And the way that like we work, because like there's so many external variables in our process, like our process naturally has to be flexible. And we need people who are more like I always say, like we just hire for like really smart problem solving people. Like I would rather have someone who's like hardworking, problem solving, and diligent and smart than someone with a bunch of experience because we need that person like they naturally understand like the things that could come up and how to think through problems. And when you have like really great problem solvers on your team, then you can have a more flexible process, and that costs more money.
Yeah, yeah. Usually, if you want, to have them, yes, I agree with all that. One of the curiosities that I have, and especially as things are progressing so much with AI and technology and yada yada yada. I mean, pick your sort of sector. But what sort of data should business owners be paying attention to that most of them aren't?
I think most people probably don't understand their margins like well enough. Like, I mean, there's like only like a few core like metrics for like every business, which is like how much does it cost to acquire the customer? What is your margin that you make on like delivering that product? How much more stuff will they buy from you? Like, so basically, like it gets into like your CAC, your LTV, like your gross margin, and that's like basically every business. Um, and those, I think the problem is like people don't understand how to like how to think through those and like put them together, right? It's like, do you have like a large LTV and it's all in one purchase, or do you have an LTV that's like over 5 years, right? How do you think about like acquiring a customer where like it's all in one purchase versus acquiring it where it's like it's a consumer product? Are you fine losing money on some? How do you think about payback periods? Like it's very strange because like those core things about like CAC, LTV, margins, like they should like inform almost like all of your decision making.
Right. Because and so few of the decisions are being based on those metrics.
Yeah, a lot of times. I mean, people don't have them. Like they're unsure about them, and they don't trust them. There's all sorts of like funny things that come up with people.
When you create that frame, it just, or I think a better way to say it, when you create that lens through which you make your business decisions, knowing, okay, we are a business, right? We have a podcast company, so like, we have long LTV. We've had clients that have been with us for years, and so for us, when you go, oh, am I making decisions in the business that lean on that drive that if I know that that's the sort of business, are we building out the processes and systems to make sure that all of our retention is, 10 out of 10, 100 out of, like whatever it is. And I'm like, I don't know that we've brought that much like urgency or clarity, or that it's had as much weight as it should have, when it comes to actually looking at what drives the business, as opposed to, oh, we need more revenue, or, oh, can we sign more clients, or, like there's all these other things that are where I'm frankly just pulling numbers out of my ass because I want to feel, I want to pat my ego on the back a little bit, as opposed to thinking about what's, like you said, what's going to drive real margin.
Yeah. Well, like you're in a very interesting industry because like media is like the margin on media is technically like 99%, right? The cost to like really produce these shows is not like, marginal, right? You're selling like ad space, like generally, and so it's like it's like how are you supposed to think about like the cost of production, right? Like how much should go into the cost of production? Does increasing production costs increase like the lifetime value or like retention, like in terms of listeners and stuff, right? Do your sponsors like it more? And like I imagine those are like the types of things like, and that gets into your gross margin too, right? Which is like if you spend 10 times what you spend now on the production of the show, like would it yield better results or would it not, right? Like and yeah, like I think like every business comes back to like these very simple like principles, and then you're a two-sided marketplace because you have the listeners and then you have sponsors, right?
We're in a client, a client facing service. I mean, I think like we get put on the marketing budget for most of our clients. Most of our clients are in service providers, and I guess here's our usual time where we go to commercials. So, we work with businesses as a business development tool. Obviously media companies have the opportunity to become their own media company, and to that point, not only can they use the media as marketing for their own business, but then it also becomes an asset that they can leverage, and it becomes inventory that they can now sell or leverage, in other ways through sponsorships or partnerships and things like that. But our main model is we serve, doctors and lawyers and surgeons and consultants and a lot of marketing agencies, helping them find more clients. And so that for us, our clients are or the people that we're trying to serve are these businesses. And so it's a little bit different. It's an interesting, yeah, we to your point, we have an interesting model. Um, One of the other things that I wanted to get your thoughts on is how AI is changing things. If it's something that you're seeing is making a real impact at the level of what you're doing. Are you in the hype train? Is it the no hype train? Is it the terminal? Like how are you feeling and approaching AI with regards to what you guys are doing?
We do a lot of like AI implementation. So like we are certified providers of AI implementation for like the government of the United States. And so like we work with both public companies and about implementing it. I think that it's probably overhyped in terms of AGI and it's underhyped in terms of like how it's going to like actually change them. It's definitely underhyped in that people don't know how to apply it. It's overhyped in that people think that it's going to take over everything. So like the underhyped is what is, I think there's a lot of confusion around, will AI do my job? Like my entire job, like, like, well, like all of a sudden you don't have to have like any specialty. And we don't necessarily view AI, like from our perspective, we don't necessarily view AI like that. We see AI as like cutting out a lot of like the middle layer or like a lot of the execution. And so like you still need people to like sit at the input, right? Like strategy, what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, right? You have AI execute a lot of that, and then you actually still need to sit out the output layer, which is like verifying, correcting, making changes.
Yeah, it seems like I was working with my operations leader today, and essentially she was like, this. It was like the AI keeps making mistakes, and it was like, well, we tried to make the AI too smart, is essentially what it was. And it was like we had to really separate functions. And like I think it's like people think it's really smart, and it's actually like really dumb in an interesting way, in the sense of like if you try, like it can be very smart or narrow and specific in its role, and then outside of that is sort of where you need the human to be able to stitch these together or move things between the two. Because when you let an AI run the whole process, I think that's when you have real problems.
Yeah, I think process is going to become we were talking about like processes and systems at the beginning, and I actually think that it's going to become even more important because I think that so far like where we're at in like the AI cycle, we see better results when it's tightly scoped, right? So like just this one thing that it will do, right? And then you stitch, you put like a bunch of them together to run multiple functions, and this produces like a significantly better result than like do this, then this, then this, then this, like these 10 different things, right? If it's like this is like the exact steps to do this one thing, it can actually execute that pretty well. What happens right now is everyone's like, well, I want the AI that kind of like goes everywhere and does everything. I'm like, it just doesn't really exist. Or like the quality of the results that you're going to get will be significantly like for every level of like data that you add, like the result quality like will drop like some percentage.
Yeah, I think it's important to think of it like people too. Jim Collins, Good to Great. I think one of the lessons in there is like the right people on the right seat on the bus, and so for me, it's always like a lot of business owners try and get one person to do everything, and I'm like, they're not a unicorn. It's not, it's not. They're not Superman. And in the same way, if you try and get an AI to do all of the functions, but you've got to get like even more narrower. But you might have an AI to do sort of, one is good at research, but it's not going to be the one that writes for you, and then one is good at writing, but we've realized that we need a proofreader. We need like an AI to be, someone that verifies and cleans up and all the, really stripping down the functions. And that's allowed our process to actually be that much better, as opposed to we would be faster, but the output was like shitty.
Yeah, it's worse. And people now like call it AI slop and stuff, right? People like know that it's AI and it's not that great, and like there's like some element of a human touch, like that really does make it go from good to great. And so I think people think about AI too broadly. In reality, it's like the way that like I always been pitching people about it is like, don't you just want to like not do those tasks that take a bunch of time that take up a bunch of time? Like, isn't like well, why are you thinking so much about like all the stuff that I can do? Like, shouldn't it just solve like some easy problems for you that you don't like uploading spreadsheets and changing spreadsheets and moving documents here and proofreading like client review stuff, right? Like simple stuff that's like kind of a pain. Like, why are people so obsessed about having it like do some crazy stuff when I'm like, but like it could just do all the stuff that you don't want to do. And people, I like when I talk to people about that, they're like, that makes more sense. I'm like, yeah, it does make more sense. Like, why I don't want to be moving these documents around or changing file names or like whatever, right? Like, I actually do want to send my own email sometimes because like I write with my own voice, right? And so there's like all these weird use cases where I was like, I think people think about like stopping working, and I'm like, they should just think about what tasks do I no longer want to do that I should stop doing, and that AI can now.
Yeah, I was just talking with Wilson there. He's a professor, and it was just interesting because he's an older gentleman, and I don't think he would disagree with me saying that. He's older than us on the call, and the use cases just seem to be much harder for that sort of generation, right? But I feel like that's something that I think younger people tend to be better with, is just identifying those use cases. And I would imagine that it's probably even harder for them to do that within their business because they've done it that way for so long, and this is the way that they've done it. And I can just see the change management or the adoption coming a little more, a little harder for organizations that are more established, perhaps. What do you counsel to those types of organizations, or the ones that go like, oh, this is a fad, or we don't do AI, or we're a I've seen some businesses that like we're a non AI organization. Like, how do you respond to those sorts of ideas?
I was like, yeah, I mean, they're probably not my target market. I don't talk to them people. The people I talk to, like, generally want to be implementing it. If they did say something like that, and I had to try to convince them, then I would talk to them about what are all the tasks that you are doing poorly now that like you cannot get your people to do that you wish that got done. Why don't you start on the tasks that like you can't even get to? So instead of trying to like remove people from processes and do this, there's a lot of tasks that get done really poorly because people can barely get to them. And that's another great like starting like spot like and this is where we actually do talk to organizations where it's like, oh, we have this problem where we can't get the customer reviews, and we actually get like all these customer reviews. We have problem with uh cross communication between our teams because the marketing team will send out like this communication, but we have this frequent like customer support question. And this is like a literal use case. And I'm like, yeah, like we can automate. It reads all the FAQs every single day, right? And it will proofread all the marketing copy and give them all the copy feedback as if it came from the support team. And now your support team and your marketing team like each other, right? Because they're not like at odds. And there's like these simple like problems that like actually exist like quite a bunch in organization with communication and workflows that people can't get to. And that's another great place to like start, which is like, what are all the places where there's so much friction that you can't get to that you wish you could?
Oh, I've never been so fired up to go implement and augment processes. Justin, I've detoured this conversation selfishly. Are there things that we haven't talked about today that business owners who are wanting to scale should be thinking about or doing?
Depends on the size of scale. I mean, I consider myself still pretty small. So the things I think a lot about now are, I mean, I think you go through stages, right? So the first things that like people are thinking about are like how to get the first deals, like how to close deals, how to make business, how to generate pipeline. And then I think quickly after that, like you start worrying more about like finance, operations, and people. So like right now I'm in the stage where like, like I would say like my advice would be like, hey, like if you're in the first stage, like make sure that you're still thinking about the second stage because it comes up quickly. If you start to develop pipeline, the need for people like comes very fast. And having systems and thoughts around like how to hire, how to train, how to get, like you're saying, the right people into the right spots is like essential. It's like crazy, like the trope of like, oh, your team is everything. And then like one day you wake up and you start saying it to yourself. You're like, team is everything. Uh, and and it kind of just like comes slowly. I don't know why. Like at least for me, it did. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing it all myself. I'm like highly specialized or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I can't do anything anymore. Like everyone else has to do it. And that's like a big, I think, learning curve. I think that people don't realize if like you are actually starting to get like business success, like that phase comes very quickly and you should think about it earlier.
Yeah, it's a practical and a very emotional process because like practically you need the people, you need the process, you need the SOPs, you need to like be able to hand it off. And then it's an emotional thing. I've even found it with, some team that like I was more quicker to delegate, but some people are just it's a very hard identity sort of based thing.
It's their baby.
Yeah, to let go of whatever it is that they're doing. And so yeah, I think that's a great advice for business owners. Justin, as we wrap out here, I've got two questions for you. The first is if people want to follow up with you, get more connected, involved, where's the best place for people to go?
LinkedIn or X, Twitter, whatever people call it now. I'm like a silent watcher on social media. I say that like people DMing me there is like the best way to get a response.
Watcher. Okay, we'll link that up. Do you have the handle on X just for those who are driving or?
Yeah, it's Rashidi, RASHIDI_life, LIFE, and LinkedIn. But I am a silent watcher. Like I'm on there, but I'm too busy to post sometimes, and that's why I'm trying to do these podcasts. Someone's like, just go talk on podcasts. I was like, all right, man, I'll try it. I was like, I read a lot on there, but I have a lot of conversations. I actually message a bunch of people on there, and like I have a bunch of conversations, but I have like 100 followers. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of on there. I'm silent.
A silent watcher. Yeah, maybe I group myself in there too, and maybe that's why I do these podcasts as well. My last question for you, Justin, is in your opinion, what is the secret to scaling a business?
Transformation, maybe like this, like self transformation. I think that like I don't know if this is like too philosophical, but like the what I have seen, the best part of like what we do is that we get to see what good companies and what bad companies do. And one of the things that like I quickly noticed was that companies that stop growing, it's they always grow to the scale of the leadership. So like if leadership no longer wants to change, you will always go to that size, like whatever size that is. And that could be like, I don't want to hire a team. Like I don't want to like fully delegate. Like and so I think a lot about like with myself, like advice I try to, it's like I have to continually evolve to the next level if I want my company to evolve to the next level. And I think about that, like new levels, new devils, and the different skill sets. And it's like a constant game of transformation.